It's Cardboard Time, episode number 45, and I'm your host, Arwen Kathke, and here with me today is Jamie. Jamie, hello. How are you?
Howdy. I am tired. How are you?
I'm also very, very tired. It is our wrap-up episode from GenCon 2022. We will be back with our normal episode format on episode 46. So, again, very minimal editing today, if any, because I'm tired and Jamie's tired, and maybe we'll get a little bit rambly, but we'll see. I think people just kind of enjoy that. You know, it's one of those things that's like, meh, yeah, you know, you get off into the weeds a little bit, it's fine.
You know what? It's when I'm listening to podcasts, my brain kind of goes that route anyway, so it's like... It's nice because you can kind of dip in and dip out and still not feel like you're missing a whole lot. So, you know, really we're doing this for you guys.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not, you know, a lack of energy or anything. It's really just because we're so kind and benevolent, you know?
Yes, we are great people.
And super humble.
So humble about it. Just
according to Twitter means you get to go first in Everdell. So
yeah, I had to explain that one to Allie because she asked. She was like, "I have no idea what you were going back and forth about with chip theory," and I said, "Because if you're in Everdell and you're the most humble, you get to go first." And they were humble, bragging about their Best of Gen Con award. But they were humble about it, so they're the most humble, so they get to go first in Everdell. And I said, well, there you go. You know, you can kind of get the joke now. You know, mostly congratulations on being in Everdell first, but also this other award. But mostly, you know, being first in Everdell. So she goes, yeah, I get it now. So I'm so tired.
Me too.
so Me too. Tired. Well,
it's transcendent, honestly. Like it's ethereal how tired I am.
It is. It's so we're gonna get into exactly why we're so tired and all the things that went on this past weekend. So let's get right into it. Let's start with a little bit of the prep before Gen Con because I do want to talk about this. One of the big things that I wanted to do as part of Gen Con was provide some barbecue. And this came back to a comment that the charity gamer, Chris, who is a wonderful, wonderful person that we got to interact with a lot more at Gen Con, basically interacted with my Twitter. I had smoked a pork shoulder and posted the picture on Twitter, and I just said, you know, this is pretty good. I'm pretty proud of this. And he says, hey, that looks really good. Got a nice bark on it. Can you bring some to Gen Con? And of course, with me and anything, somebody posts something like that, and that's a challenge to me. So I wound up going and taking that one little comment and making 10 portions of barbecue, which wasn't nearly enough to give out to everybody that I wanted to. And I was actually going to make some cake too, but I decided not to go overboard with things. So I made pork shoulder, baked beans, and homemade mac and cheese, and my own homemade sauce for the very first time, which was really good. And yeah, it seemed to be a pretty big hit. You know, I had people all throughout the weekend come up and say how much they liked it. So I think we're going to be driving out to PAX U this year. So that's an announcement, I think. If you didn't already know, we're going to be at PAX U. And I think I need way more barbecue this time because it was just crazy. I felt bad telling people I don't have any more.
I want to just point out that I think that like this is probably the only situation, culinarily speaking, in which bark is a positive feature. I mean, unless you're talking about like peppermint bark. See, I already ruined it. I've just never heard somebody refer to bark on a barbecue, but I mean, it makes total sense. That's just hilarious. Yeah. And for what it's worth, it's an extremely versatile meal because we managed to turn it into nachos, which I apologize
Yes.
to everybody who enjoyed the barbecue because it was only made better by making it into nachos. And they didn't get that experience.
Well, you helped with that because you and Rachel brought queso,
We sure did.
which made it be able to turn into nachos, and it was such a wonderful flavor combination.
It really did work out, especially with like the little chunks of mac and cheese that were on the nachos in addition to the queso. And we were sitting here talking about like how, without getting into too much information or being too blue, I guess, our GI tracts suffer whenever we go on these trips because of all the rich and like immediate food that we need to consume just because of how little time we have. And then we're all sitting there just eating like unholy amounts of cheese, complaining about it. And we're like, why does this keep? Oh no, if it isn't the consequences of our actions come to
What is
pass.
what is the science behind the fact that we keep having GI issues on these trips, and yet here we are just eating large quantities of cheese?
I'm
because
sitting
we
here
love
with
it.
my thumbs slapping my phone covered in queso, Googling, why do I need to eat vegetables?
Do you have cravings for like fresh food after you get back home from a convention? Like you just want to eat a salad, or you just want to eat a whole bunch of vegetables?
Without a doubt. And I even did eat vegetables at the con, believe it or not. I ate vegetables and some fruits. So
Whoa.
I was an overachiever this time, and I still feel like I need to just go mow my lawn face first for the next week in order to get like my body back into some sort of homeostasis.
Yeah, I'm kind of at that point myself. Like the fruit that you bought was a really, really good idea because it just had some sort of normalcy.
Right.
And that was one of the things that I really appreciated about a couple of the other conventions I went to that, provided breakfast and everything, is that you could get some sort of fruit in the morning. And I was able to get fruit, but I didn't because I was just wanting to go to the convention. And I suffered for it.
I also want to add that our breakfast sandwiches were plant-based. So, while we didn't have like vegetables in their vegetable format, we did have plant-based patties on our breakfast sandwiches.
Really?
Yeah, I think they were.
Oh, they didn't taste like it. They tasted pretty good. So
They were pretty damn good. I might have to buy those more often.
yeah, exactly. Those were solid. I really
Yeah,
enjoyed
shout out
those.
to Jimmy Dean for keeping the con energy going.
Seriously, Jimmy Dean for the win. So we were gonna book a lot of stuff. Getting out of the whole GI talk here, we were gonna book quite a bit of stuff, but we kind of thought better of it. And I said, I really want to play more games. I really want to explore this convention more. I want to spend some of that time maybe getting to just do some organic outreach in that. And that was unsuccessful. I booked like 2 or 3 things a day and just wound up, getting roped into a bunch of conversations with friends, which was great. But we had like almost no meetings. So we're going to kind of talk about that. But going into this, I really didn't want to overbook myself and wound up being booked the entire time too.
So much for a light con, huh?
So Gen Con was basically anything but light, and we're gonna get into that. So let's go into Wednesday. Wednesday was our travel day. I got off of work, and basically Allie and I drove to the con, stopped at Taco John's and a couple of Starbucks so that we could have some bio breaks. By the way,
I interrupt you really quick?
Yeah.
So you said our travel day, but the way that you said it sounded like you said our travel day, and I'm like, we didn't play our travels.
We didn't play our travels. Are you that tired?
It's like, maybe. I was like, did you guys just play it before you left? Like, what is this?
We should have.
Sorry.
We should have. That's
I'm
a great
sorry.
game.
You were saying that you even included time for bio breaks.
Yeah. So
Which is smart.
here's something that I didn't know that you didn't know. So we talk about trans issues a lot on this show. You know, it's sometimes relevant in the discussion topics that we bring up. And if you are looking for safe bathrooms, usually Starbucks is a place to go that I know I'm going to be able to get a, gender neutral restroom and I don't have to worry about it. I can just go, I can pee, I don't have to, worry about interacting with a bunch of other people. I just go to the bathroom and I'm done. Because it's more nerve-wracking for me than the people in that bathroom, I think. So that was a tip that I don't think you even had realized, and I think that one was new for you when I had mentioned it.
Sorry, I'm taking advantage of the fact that we're on camera for once and nodding along because I'm like, yes, this is a conversation that we're having. Not realizing, I should say, that those of you at home don't get the benefit of seeing me nodding my dumb head. So yes, I agree. That is a thing I didn't know. Thank you, Arwen.
Yeah. No problem. Because this isn't a video podcast, this is audio. So we wound up getting into the hotel about like 9:30, 10 o'clock at night, somewhere around there. And then Jamie said, well, we've got all of Wednesday off, so we can get down there probably before you all do. And what time did you both get down there, Jamie?
1:30
a.m. Thursday. Not Wednesday. Not early Wednesday. Early Thursday.
In my defense, the reason we were so prepared, and part of the reason we always end up late to things, is because we overplan and we overprepare so that when we do show up, albeit late, we're there with bells on and with support for everybody.
And we'll get into that too, but let's go into Thursday, because this is gonna start getting into the real meat of GenCon for us. And the first thing I wanted to ask you was your tournament experience. So you were kind of waffling on this before we left about whether to participate in this tournament that you did, and you decided that you wanted to go and play in it. So I think this was your first like convention-based tournament. What did you think? What was your experience?
Definitely my first convention tourney of any kind, much less of Conquest, which was the game I was playing. It's a rank and flank style tabletop war game, which is only going to make sense to like 20% of our crowd, I imagine, since we're mostly board game fans here. And so this is a game I've been working on, like kind of catching on at my shop lately. And I've been working on the army that I was playing in terms of painting since the beginning of this year. Or, I mean, not necessarily the beginning, but kind of earlier this year. I was trying to get it ready for Origins, and the tournament ended up being canceled at Origins, so I was not able to participate in that. There were some weird scheduling issues, and we didn't have enough people signing up and everything. But long story short, Gen Con is obviously a more popular, more populated convention, so we had a pretty good turnout, and it was a lot of fun. I actually seeded fourth, and I was kind of slated to continue into likely the top three on day two, but by that time had already spent an entire day playing in the tournament and couldn't sacrifice yet another day to more tournament play. And I already got the original reason I set out to do it, which was getting best painted in the tournament, which I did already, and they had already told me. So I was like, I kind of got what I came here for. So I'm just gonna move along. But that said, it was a lot of fun. I really hope to see more turnout in the coming years, and potentially more focused on smaller volume games in terms of like how many minis you have to bring, because that was a big struggle for me too, although it's likely just that I need to invest in better transport for that. And frankly, and this is something we'll get into later because I did have some booth time with Parabellum, and I talked at length with one of the higher ups in the company about particular things I've noticed as a retailer, as a player, and this also translates to the board game world because you have. I mean, we inevitably have games that are really hard to get new people into just because of how intimidating they are. And it's the same thing in wargaming where, like these other games, these bigger games are so satisfying to play and they're really, really great. But the learning curve is so incredibly dense, and the buy-in is also extremely dense. They're exactly the same problems facing both industries. So there is a lot of crossover there. And I say all that to kind of highlight the fact that maybe focusing on smaller skirmish-style games, which have, 20 to 30 minis instead of... I mean, you saw how many I had. It had to be probably in the hundreds of minis that I had to bring with me for this, which, again, very satisfying, extremely fun, but also really difficult to travel over 5 hours. All told, it was a really positive experience. I really liked it. I had a lot of fun. I got some sweet prizes out of it, which is always good. And I absolutely would do it again, but I found it to be tricky to sacrifice another day because, as we've said, it already was so hard to fit everything we needed to do into 4 days, and I had to manage to fit it into 3. So, not to compare woes, but I didn't realize that until I was talking about this, that like all these things I'm complaining about didn't happen for me over 4 days. They happened over 3 days.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think that's the thing with time and conventions in general that I've gotten to see and was especially apparent here was you have this fixed block of time. And there's actions and consequences. So I get to go do this thing, but I might miss out on this thing. I get to go do this thing, but I might miss out on this and this. So it's really all a matter of, how do you want to spend your time? And sometimes that's extremely tough to choose because a lot of the stuff that you want to do is happening at the same time. So I mean, I think that there's a lot that happens that way that you kind of have to pick and choose, and I think especially with something like that might be the only time that you get to be able to have a tournament like that. But I could definitely see where you wouldn't want to spend a second day trying to go and participate in that as well.
Right, exactly. And it's tricky because there's so many things you want to do, and even after the fact I was sitting there thinking like, oh man, I missed this and I didn't get to do this, and like I didn't get to visit the guys at IB Studio who have always been, I mean, they've been longtime con friends of ours at this point, and I've made a point to see them at every convention, and I didn't get to see them this time, and I'm really frustrated about that. And then I start thinking about things like, oh, there were all these painting classes I could have taken which will help me professionally and stuff like that, but they were like 2 hours long, and this con was very eye-opening for me in terms of how I'm going to need to split my time going forward at these events, and what I'm truly going to get out of them, which is really good because I think everyone I talked to said that this con is a more professional experience. It's a more it's busier. It's a working con. It's very industry focused, even though it is customer facing. This is really where the rubber meets the road in terms of, Kickstarters launching and new games being teased and early market games because, Ahoy, for example, from later isn't coming out until fall, but you could buy it at the con and things like that. So there's opportunities for us creators to get in, early as well as consumers, but still get this content out before the game is actually available to them. And you really have to start making cuts, which is kind of unfortunate and a new thing for us, I think. Because we don't want to play favorites with all these amazing, lovely people we get to meet. And doubly so for me, because if I want to get any work or, contacts in the miniatures realm of all this, I need to break off and do my own thing.
Hmm.
and it's tricky.
Yeah, it's a really tricky thing. I would agree with that. And I know one thing that you had to sacrifice that you were really looking forward to was Maple Valley. And I got to do that with Allie, and I was really, really glad that I did. It was an amazing game. I'm really looking forward to. Um, it really maintains the feel of Creature Comforts, but you have all these routes that are out in front of you. You're trying to play on your turn. You're playing these friends that are going to help you traverse these routes. And really, you're trying to optimize the resource gathering that you can do both on these routes and at your final destination. So most of the spots are these kind of groves that you're going and you're harvesting these resources from. And during the game, you might have friends that help you harvest even more off of those spots. And then you're turning those resources into comforts. So that brings that part of the game back where if you've already played Creature Comforts, you know, I need this, 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 and this to get this, which is really cool. That's how you get points. You can also get points through these special either one time or once per round abilities that you get. Some of them are just overall persistent, like if I'm going to harvest a certain type of resource, I get an extra one. You spend basically a turn trying to get one of those. Originally, Sean was explaining that they had a cost, and now they just basically have you spend a turn to get one of those. But it was really, really fun. I love the friend cards because each of them has a different ability, and you can get more of them, but you have to basically spend a turn doing that. So you spend your turn back at this home starting space, and you pick one of them up, and you have to pay resources to do that as well. So you're not crafting these comforts, but you do basically get another turn, which is really, really cool. Um, the friends were super cute. I love the character design. The art on in this game is the exact same art that you would see on Creature Comforts. It's not finalized yet. The board was definitely not finalized. The cards, I could have played with those all day, and I think that they're pretty much good to go. I think the biggest issue that we had learning it was linking the components that were the prototype components to the symbols. Once we did that, it was super smooth. Allie got it really quickly, and sometimes she does have problems picking games up, listening to rules and everything, but she just picked it up super quick. I was really sad that you couldn't play this one because I think you would enjoy it. I think that, you are a huge fan of Creature Comforts, which is going to be something that eventually we do a just full review on, for reasons. But yeah, I mean, this is one that was one of my top games of the con and one that I really wanted to talk about. I was super excited that, I was going to be able to demo this with KTBG. And I think it's going to turn out really well. I think a lot of people are going to like it. If you like Creature Comforts, I think you're really going to like this. It feels different enough that it has a definite place in my collection in the future. Even though I don't have a copy, it's going to be there. So yeah, that was a good one for sure. That was an exciting game.
I'm really, really sad I missed this one because as you mentioned, I'm a huge fan of Creature Comforts. It's just one of my favorite games right now, and I even made sure to make time for Rachel to play it before we left, and I didn't even get to stop at the KTPG booth. I think overall, over the span of the weekend, I got maybe 4 hours in the dealer hall, so I had to be really specific about what I spent that time on. And that said, I really, this is one of my biggest regrets of the con, was not getting to get over there and try that with you.
Yeah. I felt very fortunate that we were able to get a look at it because I saw a lot of different people that are pretty big up in the industry checking this one out, and the fact that we got some time to check it out was really cool. So I know that you're gonna like it. You're just gonna have to wait a little bit longer to play it. So, and while I was at the booth, I got my copy of Fall of the Mountain King. I am so excited to play this one. The mechanics look amazing on it, and yeah, really, really looking forward to getting that one to the table. Glad to see that it had 1 to 5 on the side of the box. So even now I might be able to get it out solo, as opposed to Hall of the Mountain King, which was a 2-player game, unless you got the Kickstarter or the Fallen Mountain expansion, which, or Cursed Mountain, I think it was. Added that solo player mode in there. So it took me a while to get that out to the table, but it looks like this just incorporates solo play to begin with. So I'm thinking maybe later today that might be the one that I go to check out and start getting that played.
I really, really want to try that one. I would love to also try what's it called? You just said it, Hall of the Mountain King. Brain no work.
Yes, yes.
I need to try both of them. I'm a very recent KTBG convert, and now I need to try everything.
Yeah, I've got to get this one to the table pretty quickly, because it's one that I've wanted to try and definitely want to talk about.
There seems to be a trend of you introducing me to one game that a company makes, and then me going whole hog on buying like literally everything else they make, because I can't get enough.
Well, wait until we get to later.
Okay. I could definitely hold off. I'm just excited because as we'll do a little guessing game later for you to figure out how many games I walked away with this con. We'll just let's hold it. We'll hold it.
Yeah, absolutely. So we that night got beers with Tim Vernig and the Thunderworks crew. Metazoa was a lovely place to go get beers. I was really happy with it. Tim always has a knack for knowing exactly where to go to get good beers, and Metazoa was no exception. The food truck there was really good. They had barbecue as well, so we had our fill of barbecue for the weekend, and those nachos were amazing.
We just had so many nachos.
There was so much cheese and so much nacho there.
Wait, the pause you had was that existential feeling of, how many nachos did I eat in 4 days? That can't be right.
To think now.
I was counting each nacho mentally and like doing the long division on how many days or hours it took off of my life, and the existential dread that put upon me was so much to bear.
It was like, oh wow, that was a lot.
There really was a lot of nachos. I don't regret a damn thing.
No, exactly not. So we wound up getting back and getting some sleep. Our hotel was interesting, to say the least. It was a little bit outside of the downtown area. We had to drive, I don't know, maybe I'd say 3-4 miles outside of the immediate downtown area to get to this hotel. And the staff was super nice that was there. But it was eventful.
Not quite as good as our Origin staff, but that's really hard to match.
No.
That's really hard to match.
No, you're not going to match Clifford. I mean, there's no way that you can match Clifford. And the fact that I knew Clifford's name off the top of my head should tell you that.
All I know is that despite the hotel staff being wonderful and not quite as exuberant as Clifford, we definitely went out there and claimed it every single day.
We definitely claimed it. So the interesting things that happened in the hotel, the elevator was haunted and cursed, and you could feel like the bumps of wheels traversing like the track that guided the elevator. You could feel the bumps every time it like hit a floor, and it like shook. And then once it got to the top floor that we were on, it was like just jostling a lot.
It seemed like it forgot to break until the last second whenever it got to the 12th floor, and then you'd be like, oh. It's like, oh no, is this like the tower at Disney World? Are we gonna
Disney
fall?
World.
You know, and it was only, I think, on day 2 or maybe day 3 that we decided to look up at the certificate in the elevator, only to find that it had expired months ago. The inspection has not been done in over 5 years, and the certificate is expired.
Yeah. Yeah, it's reassuring. Let me tell you, when you look up at that sticker, and always in hotels, I'm like, why is it there? Well, because it's never expired. This one was expired. I've never seen an expired hotel certificate before.
Not even close.
Elevator.
Not even like a close to date. But like, there was also a concerning amount of puddles in there, like on a frequent basis. Which could have been in the pool, or pee, which is the same thing basically. But yeah, and it was tiny. Like for any of us to fit in there with our backpacks, like it was untenable.
Yeah, like you got one of these little miniature carts in there, and it took up the entire thing. It was a really just kind of bizarre. I think it was originally apartment buildings that they just converted, because there was an apartment building like right next to it that had the same construction and everything, and I think they just took the apartment building and converted it over into a, like Candlewood Suites. I think that was it.
I was like, there was a point in time where I was like, what is the naming convention for this? And then I realized they were just as confused in naming it as they were in creating it, so anything goes.
Yeah, exactly. One morning we didn't, Friday morning we didn't have water, so this is a good segue into Friday. We didn't have hot water. I didn't have hot water, and I couldn't take my hot shower that I need as a trans woman because that's where I live. We had no water, period. You would turn on the faucet, and it was like nothing. It was just dead. And Jamie and Rachel were still sleeping. And maintenance comes up, and he goes and he pounds on the door. He's like, "Maintenance!" And we're just sitting there, and I'm thinking, oh my god, really? It is so early in the morning. Like, I'm trying to get a shower. Allie had a headache, so she needed a shower. And it was so bizarre that, this guy comes in at like 7 o'clock in the morning and just full of exuberance, and like he was ready to go.
I wanted like, you don't have quarter water of his energy at that point.
Yeah, exactly. Because Friday we were already feeling it. But Friday we got to the convention center, and we finally got to demo Lunar Rush, which we wanted to do at Origins. And I'm going to let you start with your thoughts on Lunar Rush.
I was excited for Lunar Rush just completely out the gate, like when we were talking about it at Origins, just because it kind of mimicked, or not mimicked necessarily, it kind of reminded me of like a game I've been constructing in my head mentally for a while, and I kind of wanted to see like what that would look like from the perspective of somebody who actually knows what the hell they're doing, and I would say it was a wild success. I really enjoyed it, and not just because I completely crushed everybody in it. I had to put that in there. I had to throw that in there. But I was like,
you lapped one of the people that was at the table.
Listen, I can't help that I'm just like a prodigy at board games. And I won't feel bad about it. I'm just kidding. It was complete dumb luck. it was just like, so. Do you want me to explain the game,
Yeah, the best
or
that
do
you
you want me
can.
to just tell you how I feel about it?
No, why don't you go and explain the game a little bit for people who don't know what it's all about?
Okay, so Luna Rush is kind of a competitive delivery game, I think is a good way of putting it. I don't know. I only know a handful of buzzwords, so I'm not going to bother with it. I'm just going to explain it from the perspective of a more of a layman approach. But all told, you are basically operating shuttles to the moon and back in order to capitalize on a recent discovery of a couple of really important materials that were found on the moon. And so the kind of the crux, the movement of the game is a small bidding system in which you have a number of cards 1 through 5 that you use to try to outbid each other for the opportunity to place your ships on one of 3 different tracks to the moon, and then another number of 1 through 3 different tracks coming back from the moon. And those 3 different tracks vary in that there is a fast track, a medium track, and a slow track. The variance doesn't end there, because from that point, you can also transport more items the slower you go. So there's opportunity in transferring these items in the slow track. However, it'll take at least 3 turns for it to arrive on the moon or returning from the moon. Now, there are opportunities on the moon to build resources that you can then use to construct, upgrades to your mines or your habitats that allow you to have more astronauts that you can then place in a worker placement style onto your individual, like almost asymmetrical kind of command board that's in front of you. The problem is when you build it on the moon, it's far more resource intensive than it is if you were to simply ship it to the moon using your ships. However, some of the more important resources take up more than 1 slot. So your 9 slots on the slow track end up becoming more like 4 slots. Because you have to transfer up these more expensive and harder to get materials. So in terms of what it is doing, I wouldn't say that is a outlandish or like super new mechanic for a game like this. But I really did find that the variance in this game and like the excitement came from the creativity behind those movement. Sorry about that ping. The movement of these ships, in and out of turn, because it happens, regardless of what else you do during that turn, whether you build something on the moon, the ships are constantly moving, completely irrelevant to the rest of what's happening in the game. There's no way to edit the movement of those ships other than placing them in the different lanes. And that becomes far more apparent later in the game when the ships that are returning are kind of jockeying for position to bring that product to market. So when it's coming back from the moon, you're sending back these valuable resources to then be sold on a market that varies based on how many are sold in that particular turn. And so when one person gets their ship back really early, they're not able to bring a ton of resources, but they are getting the best price on them. And so that then causes the market to kind of dip a little bit so that the next person in the medium lane who's bringing back 5 of those instead of 2 is going to get a little bit less of a profit from it. And then the person in the slow lane who, again, planned this 3 turns ago, or didn't, just got lucky, is then going to ship this product back that's virtually worthless now and completely tanking the market. So there's this really cool... I feel like that's where the ceiling of the strategy in the game is really going to start to become more apparent, because as you play more, you can really plan those turns out in advance. Whereas I felt I was just kind of arbitrarily throwing whatever I could build into those ships. I think the last little road bump I'll add is that the bidding system also costs you victory points. So when you're bidding to make sure that you're the first person that gets to place your ship in that prime position, whether that be fast or slow, depending on your strategy, you are losing victory points for every bid that you put in. And as the game progresses, that cost doubles and sometimes triples in certain game styles. the demo really only kept us at double in the last 2 turns, but in the full game, I believe he said it goes up to 5 times.
5 times.
And it really creates this awesome ebb and flow of points that doesn't really exist in those around the board scoring games. Because unlike something like, Wingspan, where you have no idea if you're going to win until the end, or even Creature Comforts, to name another game in this conversation, you do actively see who's going to win, but it really is hard to kind of do the mental math to see where you're going to be at in the standings once one turn passes. Things change so much that it just makes it really exciting and fun. I think it's not very hard to see that I really liked this game, and I'm super, super excited to be able to back this when it goes live on Kickstarter.
Yeah, I'm kind of in the same boat. Like I lost horribly because Jamie won horribly. So I wound up really like I took a huge early lead because I basically took a they lay out beginner cards for you, and you can use those to kind of get your first or second play a strategy that you'll get bonus points if you do a certain thing that aligns with a certain strategy. So mine was getting a ore kind of refiner and getting these gold bars that were just very valuable. And I was able to start producing quite a few of them before anybody else was able to jump into the market at all. And that really bumped my points up. The problem was I wasn't investing in other technologies. I wasn't investing in a lot of people either. So I was really constrained a lot of times with getting a lot of people and resources up to the moon, and really, being able to really develop my strategy up on the moon as I'm producing things and as I'm trying to get all these actions. I was very limited on what I could do, so I think that kind of hurt me in a way. So I got this super early lead, but then everybody just kind of caught up, and I thought maybe midway through the game, I'm like, this is gonna bite me in the butt. I'm not gonna be able to keep this, and I wasn't. But that was fine. That's why you try these different strategies. But as far as the game goes, I'm super excited to play this one again.
I'm really impressed with it. Like, of all the things, I'm sorry to cut you off, but like I'm genuinely impressed with how tight this game was. Because I've had a little talk with the creator over the weekend a couple times, because he's a fellow painter. I ended up lending him a brush, and during that time that we transferred the brush, we chatted more about the game, and it seems like he's the kind of person that has had and has kind of protoed a lot of games in the recent future. This one was apparently ready near the beginning of the pandemic, but had to be put on hold due to it. And I don't know if he's refined it since, or if it's always been in this state, but like, he truly did a good amount of work to make this operate very well. It's just one of those games where there's so many moving parts that really a lot could go wrong, in the balancing process. But I'm truly like very, very excited, and it's just one of those games that may not, like, it's not going to appeal to everyone, but the people that like this style of game are going to be really happy with this. It has got some real body to it.
And it does seem to, like you said, it sings well together. And I think really the interaction of those ships going up to the moon and trying to plan what resources am I going to send up, when am I going to send them up, how am I going to send them up, and what am I going to have to pay as far as my bid for my turn order in order to get that spot that I want. And then, okay, what am I going to do while I'm up on the moon? And then what am I going to send down? And when do I have to send it down to really, optimize what I'm going to get for what I'm selling. I think it's just so clever. It's a really slick system. The one other thing that I did want to talk about is on the flip side. Once you really get to know what you're doing, there's also challenge cards that if you meet a certain challenge, you get bonus points. So if you've gotten 5, 6, 7 plays of this game in, now you can start adding in these challenges to try to push yourself and try to, really optimize a certain strategy. And I think that should provide a lot of replay for this game, where people can get in and people can, have a couple of rounds with these beginner strategy cards, and then once they're comfortable, start adding these challenge cards in. I just think it's going to be a really, really big kind of sleeper hit, I think, because I don't think a lot of people necessarily have eyes on this one yet, and they should. I know Roberto's another big fan of this game. He's talked about it a little bit, and I think I brought it up over the weekend, and he goes, "Oh yeah, that one's great. I love that one. I played it at Origins." So definitely keep your eye out for Lunar Rush. That's for sure. I think it's coming out to Kickstarter within the next couple of months, if I'm not mistaken.
He said September.
I thought it was either September or October.
If you navigate over to Dead Alive's Kickstarter page, there may be a notification option. I believe I've already signed up for it, and if not, I'm going to today. The last thing I want to add, and it has a lot to do with the challenge cards that you mentioned, during the demo phase, and I do believe he said it's going to be in the final as kind of an intro thing, there were those cards that you mentioned that kind of help guide you through what is otherwise it would be hard to navigate in terms of the options that you have. So it kind of gives you those steps that give you extra points, so as to help guide you through the first game. It's a really clever design because it doesn't overtly hold your hand. It kind of gives you a route to take without making it feel like it's taken that agency of choosing away from you. And I think a good example of that is these gold card upgrades that they have that really do give you an economic edge early in the game, but if you buy them, you forfeit 5 points every turn by building one. So you have to kind of make this risk-reward choice, which I did early on, of do I want to sacrifice possibly 15 points before the end of the game that I could be using for bidding, whatever, in exchange for the potential, not necessarily the promise, of recovering those points. So there's just a lot going on, but it does a really, really great job. It kind of reminds me of like old school video games where the tutorial was baked into the gameplay, where it would just slowly introduce features to you so that you as a player could organically adopt them and start to understand them by doing rather than playing. And you know me, that is how I learn games. So I hope that translates to other people who are maybe more like rules readers or like video watchers or something like that. But for someone like me who learns by playing, unbeatable option.
Well, and the fact that it's optional, I think that's the big thing.
Wonderful point. Yeah,
you don't have to do this. You can go out on your own. You can just go and do your own thing, but you'll get points if you do this. So it's dependent on how you want to play it.
Exactly.
So let's get out of Lunar Rush, and let's talk about Deal with the Devil. This was another one that I want to start off with because Matus Crossi, I can't even remember how to pronounce his name. Matus, who designed Alchemist, which I think came out in like 2014 time frame, which was a brilliant game. I think it's underrated. I think not enough people talk about this game. It's an absolute favorite of mine. It's a brain burner. It's one that I just want to go and sleep after I play it. All of a sudden, now in 2022, CGE says, oh yeah, he's designed something else. 8 years later, now here we are, and he's got okay, all right, great. So Jamie got tickets for this one because she was on a stream with Ray, and at the time, you know, they basically said, "Hey, we've got some limited demos at GenCon. You're going to want to get in on this one," and I am so glad that we did. And I see you smiling about something.
I'm just laughing at your description of Matoush, like, just coming back after 8 years. It kind of reminds me of Avatar, like, long ago.
Yes. It was
and when the world needed him most.
that he would come back with something more that could satiate my love for heavy games.
And satiate it did.
Oh my god. Okay. Let me talk about this game. The best way that I can describe this is it's a combination of social deduction and Euro. What's going to happen is one player is going to be the devil. They start with no souls. One person is going to be a cultist. They start with a couple of different soul fragments. And then you have two people who are just normal common citizens that have all three of their soul fragments. So what's going to happen during the game is you're going to have an initial setup where people are going to get these envelopes. And the envelopes are basically constructed such that they're two pieces. The top piece basically is hinged on one corner and slides off. And you will use that to get and or trade resources. So at the beginning of the game, you get resources. During the gameplay, there's an opportunity for players to trade you resources using that. So basically, they put in an offering, and then they say what they're looking back or looking to get back. The thing is, the devil wants to, basically get souls. Getting souls for the devil is a good thing. The cultist wants to go and get their soul fragments to the devil is basically a piece of worship. And then the commoners can basically use their souls as a way of getting a big resource boost because the devils can make a really big offer. The devil's got a lot of resources to start off with. So they're going to make some pretty big offers, but you're going to have to give a piece of your soul to the devil to do that. So then you go into the gameplay where you're going to get some resources naturally. This is all hidden, by the way. You don't know who is who. You're going to get some resources from your player area. And then you're going to go into trading. So basically, you can make an offer, make a trade, for souls or gold or, however you want to handle the trade negotiation. Usually, you're looking to get some sort of resource so that you can build these buildings. The buildings are going to have multiple different effects, on the game. Usually, they'll give you some sort of bonus. At the very least, they give you points, and they give you a little symbol. And using that symbol, you can then go, if you get 3 of one or 1 of each, there's 3 different types, you get to go and then double production from one of your spaces. So you're getting extra resources. So there's a lot that's going on with this. So in addition, it sounds pretty Euro right now. You're trading resources and you're using them to build buildings. It's pretty standard Euro stuff. Where it gets into the social deduction is once you start getting into this Inquisition phase, where players are going to start accusing others of being the devil. And you essentially have to say, do I have all of my soul fragments or not? And if you're the devil, if you've gotten soul fragments, hey, that's a great thing. You can basically avoid, having negative consequences where you're going to get these. I can't remember if they were like demon markers, but they were basically good and bad markers that were going to lead you to either getting a pretty big advantage where you can get an indulgence, which leads you to not have to take a penalty later in the game once you start getting into the Inquisition stuff. Or you're going to start losing points by getting these bad markers. And if you can't prove that you've got all 3 soul fragments, then you basically take another one of these bad point markers. So everybody is going to go and they're going to use a token to say who they think that the devil is, or who doesn't have all of their 3, soul fragments, is probably a better way of explaining that. So then you go in, you will go and kind of go through that phase. You'll do that for 5 rounds. You get into this Inquisition where if you can't use either a indulgence that you've gotten from doing these good things, or if you can't go in and buy them off by showing that you have soul fragments, then you take a major points penalty. And in a game that's really about 15 to 20 points in the demo that we played, you're starting to lose 5 to 7 points off of one of these cards. So it's a pretty big bump that you want to avoid. So really cleverly done. One of the things that a lot of people have talked about and complained about has been the app. And I've said multiple times, the app was so well done for Alchemists that I had faith that this one was going to be the exact same, that this was going to be fine. And we watched our demo person basically go in and they used the app. It was really convenient, basically scanning a QR code and saying, here you go. This is for the blue player, this is for the red player, this is for the green player. Really slick. It's there to help facilitate the trade, and that's it. It's not going to interrupt your gameplay experience. Almost all of the gameplay is directly out in front of you. It is just facilitating trades, and that's it. Which I think is extremely clever. I thought it was well done. It was well implemented. Again, it's still in prototype, but it worked really well. Really a lot of interlocking mechanics, and on their own, it's a lot to take in, but they really work together well. The gameplay flowed well. The iconography was really well done so that you knew exactly as you were taking your turns what you had to do, what the steps were. Once you got into that second round, and you started hitting, different stuff, it was pretty easy to figure out. So I think it was a little less heavy and brain burnery than what you would see in Alchemist, because you're not doing that whole logic puzzle. But it still had some weight to it. It's definitely on the weightier side. It's definitely a little bit to take in. But our friends who aren't, super heavy gamers, Ellie and Melora played with us. And they were able to get it and pick it up pretty well on their own, and they're, I would say, more medium weight gamers, wouldn't you?
I would say
Jamie's
even I'm a
nodding
medium
her
weight
head,
gamer
yes.
typically, and I managed. I was already nodding. I was ready to jump in, but I wanted to give you space to explain it. I would say I'm typically more of a medium weight gamer. I love the occasional heavyweight, but I like to kind of plan nights around it. Whereas this one, even in the demo situation, I really felt like I got the experience of a heavy game with the feeling of a medium weight game. Because despite how many moving parts there were, once you got the rhythm of those rounds down, it really made it really simple. And honestly, like you mentioned with the app, I can't see it functioning without it. Even if there was a clever way to hide who was getting whose, trade or whatever, I think the app just makes things so much smoother, which is really exciting to see because, like you mentioned, everyone I talked to was really concerned and scared about the app. Like almost, I was a little bit taken aback by how immediate people were rejecting the concept, or the whole game rather, because of the concept. And I'm so excited to be able to report that like the app was the smallest factor of the game, and I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised at all because CGE knows what the hell they're doing. And, I feel like probably should have had a little bit more trust from people up front, but maybe it's just due to lack of exposure to their products, or at least products that have apps related to them. But I also see how that can be kind of a once bitten, twice shy situation. I played plenty of games that do feature apps that kind of feel like the game's being played for you. And then there's other ones that work really well with it, where it enhances the game. But either way, concerning the worry of apps and how they relate to games, and that trend becoming more and more prevalent, I think as long as this is the bar that's being set, we're in great hands.
Yeah, and I had seen that through the Alchemist app, which was developed in 2014. So this was before apps in gaming were really a big thing. And it was an excellent, again, minimalist, facilitate the game, make it so that I don't have massive lookup charts or anything else. Just use this app to facilitate the game, have it very low impact, and then let me get on with what's out in front of the space in front of me. I thought it was extremely well done.
I really did like it. I had so much fun with the experience, and I'm really truly looking forward to getting my hands on it when it's available.
Yeah, this is day one pre-order. Whatever they're going to do with this, I didn't get any clarity on exactly release date or timing or anything else.
I do know the answer to this one.
Okay.
It is going to officially release at Essen, but it will have a North America release shortly thereafter in early 2023. So as far as North American release, it's still a little vague. We have like a landing zone, but not necessarily a date. I'm sure that will change soon. And then for everyone else in the world, there's Essen.
I might pay somebody to pick me up a copy at Essen. I don't know.
I was thinking I might try
until 2023.
I might try to sweet talk some people.
We may know a couple of people that are going over there, so we can see.
I'd like to go someday.
I would too. That year is not going to be this year though, so. And then we got to, go, and there was a little bit of miscommunication on our dinner plans. But I got to have dinner with Jeff Sorensen from Tabletop Gamers, and you got to hang out with Ellie and Melora and their friends a little bit more, which was cool. I had a meeting that I had to go to that I cannot talk about, but it was all good things. And then we reunited, and we got to hang out with Josh, Heather, and Ches, and we got to play Space Lion, which is Solis Studios' new game. Do you want to give a brief, just overhead of what you thought about Space Lion?
Sure. I'll give a quick recap, and then I'll give my thoughts on it. But it was a very atypical demo, first and foremost, in that it happened in a bar, which felt very as atypical as it felt for us. It didn't feel atypical for the industry, and I would like to see more of this. I would like to see more out of con demoing, because it helps people like us and the designers get more in hall time. So I walked away from this whole situation thinking, like, we should really kind of help push people in the direction of, like, doing demos outside of exhibition hall time. Save the exhibition hall time for customers and the out of exhibition hall time for, creators, because then we can also visit with the people that we want to see. All that said, that's just my little soapbox. Space Lion is a really neat, I believe it's 2 to 5 player. I guess what I'll call it is It's got like a MOBA vibe, which is a video game term that is slowly being adopted by the board game industry. For anyone who doesn't know, that means multiplayer online battle arena. Basically, what they're taking spiritually from that format is this concept of like lane style combat. And what I mean by that is you have an asymmetrical style board game control panel basically in front of you that represents your faction, has a couple little tooltips on what your guys can do. And again, this is all board game. There's nothing digital about it. Each faction has a unique play style, and you have 3 different lanes of combat to focus on. You have a center lane, which everyone has a center lane, and then you have a right and a left lane, and each of those lanes is occupied by the person to your right or left. So you have 3 different fronts on which you're fighting a battle. The third front is the forefront, the top, the point pointing towards the center, where everybody is just in a massive cluster, and anything that you direct towards that will target everyone else on the table. So it's got this really creative combat focus that is very reminiscent of Chris's first game, Pocket Paragons, which I'm actually quite a big fan of. It has a nice, casual, lightweight feel to it, and the components are... we played a prototype, but they're heading in very much the right direction in terms of what Chris has been really talented at designing, which is a very, very low cost of entry for a nice, tight, lightweight game. And now, like, I'll get into this a little more during my thoughts on the thing. It has a little ways to go, but formally speaking, the bones are there. And I think he has definitely drawn from his experience with Pocket Paragons and the expertise that he's shown in developing that game. I'm very excited for Space Lion. I'm excited to see where it can go. Now, as far as our demo experience, there were some rules issues, and it wasn't even necessarily that the rules needed clarifying. I thought they were actually laid out pretty well, and the instructions therein were quite good. I don't think that was the issue. The issue was rules... what's the term? Like, there's not necessarily a term for it. I'm going to have to make
almost.
What's that?
Conflicts or ordering
absolutely.
Or something like that. Yeah.
There were some like order of operation issues. Actually, no, I take that back. The order of operation was very clear and actually quite clever.
Yep.
What the problem was the most evident in Chez's faction, which, just to give some brief context, his faction had this kind of on again, off again mechanic where he would open a door and flip a card. When he opens the door, it would power up his characters, but usually at some cost to the overall battle to him. Now, one of the mechanics allowed his main character, the leader of that faction that usually was represented by a number 0, because they provided kind of like support to the rest of the crew, his was rather powerful, and what you could do is move that character to a different battlefront in order to kind of imbalance maybe what's going on elsewhere. So you could effectively play like a feint, like in battle, so as to encourage your opponent to maybe take it easy on you that round and play a lower card so that you can then win that particular skirmish. So the idea is you can move your leader character from one place that you've overcommitted and transfer them to another field of battle where they'll be more effective. And the rule that we were running into was that when he would open his door to power up the rest of his units, it would supersede the next rule, which says this character can move to another combat zone. So it kind of negated the point of the whole card. And again, that is to say that is like one of the few rules that we found that were conflicted. It's just what it is that the core of the game is there. It needs a teeny tiny little bit of polish, I think. But as we told Chris, the art style, spectacular. I truly love the balance that he's found in his creative direction with like a fun sci-fi universe, but also having it be cartoony and fun and a little bit more appealing and accessible to more audiences. And the concepts behind the character design are really unique and very fun and don't feel like they're aping off of anything else. Once again, I'm super excited to know Chris personally now and like see his growth in the industry, because I really think he's got some great ideas, and I love that he's the person that's creating this like cradle to grave, and he has such a big hand in the operations at this point. I think he's got a great crew and he's got some great ideas, and I'm super excited to see where Space Lion goes.
Yeah, so for me, this is not my normal style of game. I'm not usually into the more heads up combat game. I tend to be more towards the Euro side of things. I tend to maybe avoid a little bit more of the direct conflict games. That said, I say that I don't like those games, but at the same time, Chris keeps making a liar out of me. There's some work that, needs to be done as far as tuning and balancing and that kind of thing. But overall, I like the concept of this. I think what he does really well, and I think really kind of touched on it, Jamie, was the asymmetric factions. I think that I'm excited for the fact that this is another game that you can go in and you can just take a faction and you can add it in. And as long as it's relatively balanced out with everything else, it's an easy drop in. It makes expandability huge. You can just go and say, okay, here's another new character that we've got, and have it have this completely asymmetric feel, but yet still work within the game. And I trust Chris enough to do that because of his past experience. And this definitely felt a lot like a Pocket Paragon's experience, but with a bigger crowd. So you could, get multiple people in there and you can get them, playing against each other.
I want to interrupt real quick. I really love that point that you made. The idea that like it's very clear that Chris is somebody who has a very good understanding of that balance, and it's very evident in the fact that he has been able to add so many characters to Pocket Paragons over the years and still maintain that balance. He doesn't get over eager in his application of techniques and concepts. He's very measured about what he adds to the game, and it really speaks to the ongoing balance of it, despite all that new content coming through. It makes for a really exciting product for a consumer.
Well, and an evergreen product at that time, where
True.
you can buy into as much or as little of it as you want. You can take, when it comes to Pocket. Yeah, no, I will definitely let you make your point after this. You can take with your Pocket Paragons, and you can have your 2-player demo deck, and you can play with people. Or you can just get the whole thing and let people choose which characters they're going to use. And I see a lot of that with this as well, where you'll have your core set, and then you can expand as much or as little as you want, but it still is going to be a good experience.
And I think, the fact of the matter is I could see it being very tempting from a creator and a business standpoint to go the CCG route.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that Chris has kind of, again, taken a very measured approach. Like, he's a very patient creator in that he won't take that easy win just to score. He has been really taking his time with, I think, these releases. He had, full disclosure, Space Lion was out once on Kickstarter already and didn't meet the goal. And he's still sticking with it. He's still consistent. He's still developing. He's very clearly putting in the legwork. And I truly am excited to see where Chris goes, because he does really great work, and I truly believe in his game. And I'm just so excited every time we get to see him and hang out with him and play his games, because he's truly he's the one who demoed it for us as opposed to his demo team. He's very excited about it. He's good at what he does, and he surrounds himself with good people.
Yeah, absolutely. So I know that we have time constraints coming up, but we have a couple more days to talk about, so let's get into those. Saturday was a super busy day. I had a ton to do. You got to drop off your minis. Why don't you tell me about your mini experience and how that went? Because you had a couple of competition entries.
Yeah, so luckily this is a pretty brief experience to recap. Saturday I did drop them off. I had just a little bit of time to bring them in. I entered 4 minis. Most of them ended up in the open category, which is just kind of a going for best in show. And I had one in the chibi category, which is just a style that I feel like everybody's familiar with. All pictures all of which are on my Instagram. But I should, now that I think about it, post individual pictures of the winners. But that said, all of them scored bronze in the judging, which isn't necessarily an overall, or it is an overall rating, but it isn't, say, like bronze as in the top 3. It's hard to explain. They're basically judged on a point system, and as soon as you clear a certain level of points, you're awarded that that particular prize. So that isn't to take away from the accomplishment of it, but I don't want to mislead people into thinking that I scored, like on the pedestal with these other pro painters. And once I realized who some of those pro painters were, I was far more proud of my accomplishments than I was originally, because I was so happy with bronze. I like that I got bronze because it gives me space to grow, things to learn. I knew what I was entering was just things that I have painted incidentally and entered. It's not something that I painted for competition. So for me to have just thrown in a couple of minis that I painted for fun in the past and still getting bronze, I'm really, really proud of how that went. And I'm really happy with, just the process in general. I thought it was a lot of fun, and I'm definitely like itching to compete more. So I think for PAX U, I'm really gonna focus on working on a single mini to actually enter, not just put in a mini that I've, again, incidentally painted. And I decided this weekend they announced the upcoming Resin Beast competition, which is going to be at Adepticon. They're partnering with Parabellum, who makes Conquest, which is a game I already play and own a ton of minis for, and Creature Caster, who's a big name in the printing and producing industry in terms of minis. If you enter both, you're part of the Resin Beast competition. It's going to be huge. Adepticon is already a huge painting con, so I'm hoping to make it there and enter the Resin Beast competition. Long story short, I'm going to be competing a lot more because that was a blast, and I am excited to see where I go with it.
Yeah, I know that you definitely had a great time, and glad to see a place, and excited to see what you have coming up. Especially as you move forward and as you actually, go in and you're trying to paint for competition. I think, you definitely have some good stuff ahead of you. And not only that, but we get to drive to PAX this year. So we can avoid, avoid the whole airline hassle that we had last year. So I want to talk about my time on Saturday because we got to interview Rob Huber in front of Bigfoot at the XYZ booth. And Rob might be one of my new favorite convention people of all time. Rob was such a sweetheart. A wonderful interview that's coming up within the next couple of episodes. We really do want to try to get that out to you because I'm very proud of the interview. I think that we had a fantastic chat, not only beforehand, but during the episode, and then also afterwards, after we stopped the recording. So looking forward to presenting that to you. It was amazing to see this gigantic monster truck from my childhood in the convention center. Right there, I was able to get my picture in front of it. That'll be up within the next couple of days as well. Just kind of, a really cool experience. Then we ran up to do a panel for tabletop gamers. Trans 101 sold out panel, by the way.
That's
have
exciting.
You note.
It
was so exciting. And I think it's not only exciting for us, but it's exciting for the fact that enough people want to know more, want to support us, want to support the community, want to be better allies, have questions about how they can, maybe be more involved in gaming, how they can improve the experience for their friends. I think there were so many good questions in that panel. There's a couple of them that I'm looking to do that were maybe more gaming related as back end segments because they were really excellent questions. What did you think of the panel, Jamie?
The panel has quickly become one of my favorite features of our con experience, and I'm really hoping that we continue to get to do it at the cons we go to, because I think typically we have a lot of really sincere and interested people. I think a lot of them are already part of the community, or at least adjacent to the community in such a way that they have a vested interest in learning more. But we also have a lot of people who already know things that are just trying to kind of, I think, codify their experience. But it's cool because, like, at a convention of this volume, it seemed like we had people who were parents that were in the crowd with their gender nonconforming, like children. We had educators in the crowd that were looking to kind of get some validation of whether the strategies they were using within the constraints of the law at this point were accurate, and like maybe suggestions about what they could be doing better. We had such a diverse array of people in the crowd that I think, like, the more we do these things, the more we can help affect the change that I think we're hoping this has on the community. And I think the cool thing is that despite the fact that it is at a board game convention, not all the questions were board game related, which I liked a lot. I like that there were some real questions that came at us. I like that it's not all centered around the board gaming experience, though that is kind of the impetus of the whole experience. I really, really hope we get to keep doing these because, they are really good for me in that they help me kind of refine and sort of analyze my talking points and the things that I like to say on my stream and on the podcast and just in any sort of media situation that we encounter. I was thrilled. I was thrilled with how it turned out.
Yeah, and I think those are all fantastic points. Like, I feel the exact same way in the fact that, we just continue to grow and doing these and having to think about the questions that were being asked and having to come up with the answers to them really does kind of help you refine that a little bit more. And I think the fact that 50 people took that hour and a half out of their day, where they could have been gaming. They've already paid for, GenCon. And then they take an hour and a half out of that experience to come hear from us and, get some questions answered. I think is really special. And I think it speaks to the importance of the work that's done, that we need to continue doing in trying to demystify that experience and really normalize things for us. So, I think that's really important. Jamie, you got to stream with Ray and play one of my favorite drawing games of all time. It was previously my favorite drawing game, and then Monstrosity came out. So, no shade to Pictomania. It's a fantastic game. It's a fantastic party game and drawing game. Just not my favorite anymore. But I'm interested to hear what you thought about it and what your experience was.
I think if I were to try to distill the experience into one word, it would be unhinged. So I was on the stream with a fellow Twitch streamer, Bonzinator, Meeple Conrad, both who work for Master Goblin Games, and Table Knots, who are kind of new to the YouTube scene, but they are delightful people, and I really, really hope to work with all of them again here in the future, because, I mean, it was literally like, it had the vibe of like hanging out with your college friends again, just goofing off and having a good time. And of course, Ray, amazing moderator of the whole situation and playing and managing the cameras. I continue to be impressed with her work. And if you are not subscribed to the Czech Games Edition Twitch channel, I highly recommend it. She's putting out at least 4 days of incredible content every week, featuring mostly Czech Games Edition board games, but doing all sorts of different awesome activities. All these people are definitely worth tuning into because they make such amazing content, and it's no more obvious in the fact than that we had the most fun time playing Pictomania. Markers were thrown, like cards were kind of flying across the table, little cardboard tokens were rolling everywhere, the most unhinged drawings of bread that looked like butts, like the London Bridge that looked like the Colosseum. Pictomania is a delight, and I'm surprised I didn't end up buying it, but I already spent a lot of money at CGE over the weekend, and I'm definitely going to need to get that one onto my shelf because it is an amazing party game as long as you can get past that barrier to entry of like, oh, I'm not a good drawer. Like people don't like drawing games for some reason. It's hard. Or they don't not like them. They're convinced they don't like them until they play them. That said, the experience was unbelievably fun. I met some amazing people, and the VOD is on Czech Games Edition's channel, but it's kind of bundled into a group of streamed video that has happened at the con. So I will have to look up the timestamp for that if you do want to go back and rewatch it. I'm going to have to do it for you anyway, Arwen, so I'll just let you know when that happens. It was a blast. I don't want to give too much away because it was just so fun to do. I imagine it was also very fun to watch, I hope.
Well, I was sad that I didn't get to see it because I was up at the AEG room. Also, Jamie, don't check your messages, by the way, because you're going to cry if you do. So if you see something from our mutual friend, don't check it until you're done because you're going to cry because I'm almost there myself. So anyways, I got to hang out with Vlad and the crew from AEG up in their suite up in the Westin to preview their new games. And they have a wonderful, wonderful lineup coming out. I'm so excited to see. AEG's usually good and solid anyways. I hardly ever come across one that I'm just kind of like about. Usually they're on the upper end of what I think about games. But I'm really excited about quite a few of them. First of all, I was so excited to finally meet Vlad. We've been talking for years. We kind of met virtually during the pandemic, right as I was starting things up, and I was brought into the content creation program, and it was one of the biggest, earliest boosts of confidence I had in myself that I was able to get my first real review copy of something, and that they valued what I had to say, and that they wanted to send me more and see what I thought. So I really did value his friendship, and to see him in person and get a big hug from him was so awesome. I wanted to talk about that because we didn't get to spend enough time together. I really want everybody to meet him because he's such a wonderful person. Couple games I want to talk about in particular. Ready, Set, Bet. I know that I said that Green Team Wins is going to be the party game of the year. This might top that. And it was hard to think about that because I had this epiphany as basically I went and I was playing this game, and Nathan Thornton, who's the designer of Green Team Wins, was standing in the back as I was playing it, and I'm like, oh no, what am I gonna say to Nathan after this? It's not definite yet, but Ready, Set, Bet in a nutshell is basically you've got this gigantic board of propositions. You have I think it's 10 horses. You have a 2-3 horse, you have an 11-12 horse, and then you have the rest that are just solid numbers. And they've actually evened out the probability curve by giving them a bonus. If you roll a number twice in a row, you get this bonus movement on the horse. And it's not a horse racing game, it's all betting. So you're betting on these horses, and it's designed to make everything really even, where you're not sure who's going to come in what place. And it's real time. And normally I'm not a huge fan of real time games, but everybody is sitting there and frantically placing bet propositions. You don't bet any of your currency. You bet these chips that you go and you basically place on the spaces, and that's it. Nobody else can place there. So once something has been placed, you can't place another token on it, so you can't all just bet on the same horse. After it gets past a certain line, you can't place any more bets. And it's such a wild time because it simulates what it's like at a racetrack. You're watching these horses, you're watching them move up. And you go and you have people yelling, 7, 7, 7. And I'm sitting there yelling, 5, 5. And you've got a bunch of content creators just standing around a table yelling out these numbers. Like, it was such an amazing experience. I can't wait for more people to get that. I want to get this game out almost like as soon as I get a big group together. This is going to be a priority to get out because it's such a fun game. In addition to that, there's little proposition bets that are real weird, wacky bets that, are super high paying, but you're probably not going to hit them. And then every round, you're actually going to get a couple of ability cards that are going to kind of shape the way that you bet as well. So there's that in there too. It's just such a fun experience, and it's hard to be. It's not really balanced. Per se, there's some balancing that's going on. I worry about table size being an issue, because it is a big board. You do have a lot of people crowded around there, and people that are shorter might have issues getting to the board properly and getting to all the spaces. But it's a party game. At its core, it's a party game.
The box didn't look all that big, so the fact that it's a big board is kind of fun.
Yeah, the box is incredibly small, but they've got it folded up really nice and that. So I didn't have a problem. I know that some people could.
After playing Unicorn Fever, I'm really excited about more betting-based real-time games.
Yes. So to me, this blows Unicorn Fever out of the water.
It sounds like it does.
Other than the fact that Unicorn Fever is really over the top and wacky in its theme.
Yes.
Gameplay-wise, I would take this, 10 times out of 10.
We can just push for a reskin.
And yeah,
Ready, set, unicorn bet.
Ooh, I like that. I think the fact that this is real time and that betting mechanism in real time just makes it hit so much. And it's so weird having that experience where I hate real time games, but I absolutely love this one. This is a wild experience that people are going to be talking about. Wormholes looks really interesting too.
You're the second person now that has been talking about wormholes today. I mean, I kind of slept on both of them when you showed me the games. I was like, yeah, cool, they look all right. But the more I hear people talk about them, the more, me, I'm like, the cover looks fun, but whatever, I don't have time. We're gonna have to try these, Arwen. We're gonna have to try these.
Yeah, so Wormholes is basically pick up and deliver, and normally in a pick up and deliver game, you have to spend time getting from this space to this space and this space to this space. And this board is such that, if you just went in your spaceship and tried to go from one place to another, you'd spend like 10 turns trying to get from point A to point B. The beauty of this is the fact that you're placing down, as a player, you're placing down these wormholes that get you from this point to all the way over here. You're going to place those, and you're going to be able to shoot directly from point A to point B. The beauty is that other players can use them as well. And there's also spots on the board that are basically like hyperdrives that once you get into them, you can go in any direction in a straight line, even if there's a gap in the board. You can just go directly in a line as far as you can possibly go. And the ability to kind of plan out your turn and have to be invested in what everybody else is doing at the same time, it just, I cannot wait to get this one out to the table because it sounds like so much fun. That old wallpaper, speaking of Nathan Thornton, looks really cool. It looks really quirky, really fun, small card game, very, very small package. I'd say about maybe half to a third of the size of a normal board game box. And it's all about matching patterns of really old, like 60s, 50s wallpaper. And he goes, there's a ton of wallpaper games that are out there. I thought that, I'd try my hand at making a wallpaper game and hope that it was better than the rest of the plethora of wallpaper games that are out there. So, flooded market and everything. And he just seems like he's trying to pick up really quirky, really unique themes and, try to use them in a really fun way. So I'd like to try to get him on the show at some point because he's a really cool guy, really fun to talk to. I got to chat with him while I was up there. And then a couple of upcoming games that they have. Shake That City is kind of like the spiritual successor to Tiny Towns that I didn't know that I needed, where you're putting all these cubes in a shaker device. You place it down. You basically manipulate the device that you drop the cubes out. It makes a 3x3 pattern. You choose a color, and that's how you have to place these tiles. Really simple, but kind of gets that spatial awareness thing that I really like in a lot of games going as well. So check that one out. Dead Reckoning, Letters of Mark is another expansion for Dead Reckoning that is going to be on Kickstarter today as this episode comes out. I slept on it the first time. I wish I hadn't. Looks really cool. Cube towers always get me going, and this is definitely no exception to that. And then the last one was Let's Go to Japan. This was a gorgeous game. I'm really interested to dive into a little bit. Basically, the designer had a trip to Japan planned. The pandemic hit, couldn't go to Japan, so he decided to make a board game about planning a trip to Japan instead, which just really... I love that story.
Everybody copes in different ways.
Yeah. Some people go and cry. This designer goes and, decides, well, I'm just going to make a board game out of it. So... lots of really interesting stuff from them coming up. I'm really excited to see where they go with a lot of these. And, at least a few of them will have some coverage coming up fairly soon on them. Well, let's get into Saturday night. Two parties that were going on that we got invited to. The first one, we got changed and we got in our spooky outfits. Allie had a big Lydia cosplay, and, we just kind of wore our spooky finest. And there was a party with Foreteller, a little bit too crowded for us, but it definitely was a cool environment, had some really cool performers in that. It just seemed a little bit too crowded for us to stick around for very long. It's just social situations. It's still a little bit uncomfortable when you get into close quarters with a whole lot of people, I think. And I know that we were all just kind of a little bit stressed with that. So we just kind of took our leave and went over to the charity gamer gathering of friends that he does every year. Started at GenCon last year, and he's kind of done that at every convention since. Again, got to talk with him a little bit more here at GenCon. Really genuinely nice guy. Like many in the board game industry, and it seems like the people that we run with were all kind of there. And I think that a lot of us, we've kind of tended to find each other, and this was just a giant gathering of a lot of us there. So just a laundry list of people that were there at this gathering of friends. And most of the time, instead of gaming, we just hung out and talked. And that the one exception of that was Ray, Jamie, and I are 2-time Yum Yum Island champions.
I also added Charlotte to that list.
Yes.
Because without her, we couldn't have done it.
Charlotte provided the game, and she controls the official convention copy of Yum Yum Island. So Jamie kind of already, let the cat out of the bag this weekend. But I bought 6 copies of Yum Yum Island for $3 a piece from the Asmodee website. So I was going to go and give them out at PAX. Unfortunately, they arrived the day after I left.
Must have been that darn courier with those cardboard goggles.
Yeah, exactly. He had the cardboard goggles on. And we basically, I picked him up so I could have a copy, Jamie could have a copy, Ray could have a copy, and then we could have a couple of copies for some friends. I think Court from Cosmos is also laid claim to a copy as well after I talked to her on Sunday, and she's like, do you have an extra one? I would love it. And I'm like, yeah, sure, no problem. So I know that I'm running low on them already after buying a half dozen of them. I didn't think that I'd have to buy more than 6, but apparently I do. But no matter how many copies that I have, and the fact that everybody might have a copy, I think it's only fair for Charlotte to control the official convention copy of Yum Yum Island. The true convention issue official, I know I keep saying official, but I want to drive that home, copy of Yum Yum Island, unless she designates somebody else to be the bearer of that for a convention. So, but yeah, I think we spent most of our time just kind of chatting. We, other than Yum Yum, we just roamed around the room and talked to people. We went outside. We got kicked out at like 11:45, I think, so that, security could close up the room. And you have a bunch of board gamers that are at a board game convention, and all we want to do is sit and chat with each other, which I find amazing. And I think goes to, Chris's point on his Instagram stream that he did, that it's really about the people. It really is the reason that we do this. It's really about the people and the relationships that we've made. You can play board games anywhere. This gives you an opportunity to maybe play a couple of games with some friends that you haven't seen in a while. But really, the board games are secondary to having that experience of being able to chat with them and catch up and really talk with some amazing people in this industry.
Or even make new friends. I know we got to hang out with Board Game House, and they helped us on our conquest of Yum Yum Island.
Yes. Amazing people as well.
Lovely people. It's so much fun. They matched our energy instantly, and we're so ready to go on that journey with us, which I applaud them for, because, when you open that box and you see those terrifying animals for the first time, you can't help but think, what did I get myself into?
It's some big energy. It really is.
Big elephant energy.
Big elephant energy. So let's get into Sunday really quick, and then we'll wrap up. But Sunday, I had the math trade and flea market. I dumped 5 games that I hadn't even played at the math trade. And a lot that I had. I wound up making $268, I think, which was pretty good. And yeah, I just really honestly looked at the games on my shelf and I said, I'm not excited to play this. Am I really going to play Twilight Imperium 1 when I have Twilight Imperium 3 and 4 as well that I haven't been able to play? So really, I just kind of wanted to go in and say, I'm done with these games. So 5 of the games that were on my shelf of shame are now gone, but there's quite a few more. Jamie, what about your Sunday? I want you to talk about your Sunday before I talked about wrapping up.
Sunday was kind of crazy for me. We got into the con a little bit after opening, and Rachel ran off to get coffee while I went to go talk to a couple of people. I went to see Bernie Lynn over at Dead Alive again, talk to them for a little bit. Got to stop off and see someone we're always so excited to see, Danny Lowe from Hatchet. She's just a delight every time we get to spend any time with her. So we chatted for a few minutes. She was even busier probably than we were this con, because every time we walked by to say hi, she was in a meeting or something. But good for her, because she does amazing work and very, very good friend of the show at this point. And then I went on my journey with my hat in hand, walking around to different mini companies saying, hi, these are my minis. Let me paint for you. Give me a job. So I decided to set my dignity aside and be very forthcoming with my my requests. And Rachel was a huge help in that, because I'm not somebody who's very comfortable advocating for myself, and so she was very, very eager to help kind of like hype me up a little bit, and a lot of times would be like, hi, my wife painted this and she's really good and you should let her paint for you. And it worked. Presumably there were a lot of people who were excited about it, and again, it's awesome to partner with people who are like smaller companies and even companies that I walked up to that are like some of the companies I would like work for as a dream job. Like Broken Anvil Miniatures, and with their new game Rivenstone coming out, like just meeting people whose work I admire and getting to talk to them like they're, just another person on the street is just so cool. That's one of my favorite things about these conventions. And I got to meet up with a YouTuber that I follow that does minis, Tabletop Minions, otherwise known as Uncle Adam. He's a fantastic mini painter and a great voice in the community about, just a lot of the stuff that we talk about in terms of accessibility and like best practices for consumer behavior and things like that. And so chatted with him for a little bit. And another one of my mini heroes, Shoshi from Shoshi's Miniatures, who makes this beautiful line of minis that focus on the female gaze instead of the male gaze. So it's men expressing emotion and doing things and being joyous and successful in ways that they're not typically depicted. So I got to talk to her for a little bit, which was a delight. And then probably most of all, the time I got to spend with Daryl McKay from Parabellum, who's their marketing agent, just talking with him about the industry, like the stuff above mini painting, right? The marketing, the techniques, the intrigue that goes into developing and selling some of these games. And I found out that he actually doesn't just work for Parabellum, but he works for a couple different companies. One of whom he's like, yeah, we should connect outside of the con and get a couple review copies your way. He is part of the company that makes the games like the Gay Agenda. I don't know if you've seen that. It's like an adult party game, and it's got a line of adult party games that are demographically oriented. So there's like The Chosen People, which is like Ashkenazi Jewish Cards Against Humanity, basically, and the Gay Agenda, which is LGBTQ, and they're made for and by the people who represent those demographics. The idea was that like Cards Against Humanity was starting to get a little too real. It started as tongue-in-cheek, and now it's like, this is anxiety inducing. So we may be getting a copy of those to try out. And they have this really cool interesting game that's out called Flex. It's only got the NBA IP right now, so I have like limited interest in that. But the technology behind it and the fact that it's IP agnostic mean that like if they can start getting more IPs under that umbrella, it could be a really, really, really cool product. Essentially, all it is like a collecting game. It's VR focused, so it's on your phone. You buy these little hexagonal tiles that have like an NBA player on them. Once you get them, you can do like battles with them, which is just a raw numbers comparison thing, and then upgrade those characters and then trade them with people. And so it is an NFT, but it doesn't work. I'm sorry, it's not an NFT, but it works on a blockchain system. So it's not like a global trading network like the BS that NFTs tend to be. It's just it uses that technology within the space of that game. So
Gotcha.
It seems like really interesting. It's got that collecting aspect, but in terms of cost of entry and component cost, it's low. So it can be accessed by people who just want to collect and have a good time, not necessarily invest in some of these collection-based games. So it's got a lot of cool things going on there. Finally, after all that, I got to talk to the wonderful, wonderful people over at Elric's Hobbies who make these really high-quality resin components for tabletop wargaming, and recently entered a contract with Parabellum to make specialized bases for Conquest. So I've been wanting to talk to these folks for a while because they work very closely in the same areas that I do, and they're also another small company, like family-run sort of thing. They actually took my minis early on in the show and displayed them in their case to kind of demonstrate to people what the Conquest minis look like. So I was already very flattered about that, but they continued to impress by just being really friendly and approachable. And during showing them my minis, this lady walked up and goes, "Oh yeah, no, I didn't judge that one, but that was my very favorite in the case. You did such a great job with it," or whatever. And it turned out to be somebody that I've already streamed with and like made contact with, but we didn't know each other in person. So it was just sort of like, I was like, "Here, let me give you my card," and I gave it to her, and she's like, oh my god, and just hugs me like out of nowhere, and she's like, "You're Jamie, like we've talked in person before." And I'm like, what the hell? I didn't like, because you don't know what they look like in real life, like you see them on stream and you have this image of them and they're just like nothing like that in real life. And the same for me, like I'm much taller I think than I seem in streams. So it was just sort of this funny little connection and then we ended up talking for like an hour and a half, and it was just a delight. And Sunday was so much fun, but I didn't get nearly enough stuff done. I needed to do so many more things, and this brings me to my question that I teased earlier, Arwen, which is, when I walked out that door for the final time, how many games do you think I left with, purchased or otherwise? I need you to guess. Let's count games and expansions. How about that?
Okay, games and expansions. I know that the number is at least 2, because I know that you walked out with Arnak and the expansion. I'm trying to think if you got anything else. I would say maybe 4.
I have 2 games, Arwen. I only bought Arnak and the expansion.
Arnak and the expansion. Well, look, you saved money.
I didn't, though. I bought a ton of art.
You bought a ton of art.
Well,
okay.
Rachel bought a ton of art and jewelry. I bought a few things.
Well,
they were all very necessary.
Yeah.
But I just feel so sad that I went to the biggest 4 days in gaming and only walked out with 2 games. I'm devastated.
So you could look at it that way, Jamie, or you could look at it in the fact that you spent so much time dealing with some amazing people and making relationships and connections and everything else. You can go to a board game store and you can buy board games.
Sure.
You can't go to a board game store unless you're, going to God's a lot of games in Parma, Ohio, which has great prices on their board games.
Or
Eric, pay me.
Or Swords and Boards in Willoughby.
Also Swords and Boards in Willoughby, especially if you're looking for minis. No, I mean, the relationships that you can make in the industry are just, those are the places that you need to make them. And I think that's what made, I was just talking with somebody about this yesterday. That's what made the virtual conventions, I've said this before, so lackluster is the fact that you couldn't make those connections in person. You can't, you cannot replace that chemistry of that in person, face to face meeting, even if it's behind a mask. You know, even if that person just wants to do an elbow bump or just say, hey, and not make contact, there's still that intangible person to person connection that you can't make anywhere else but a convention. So I wouldn't be too sad about that. I would just look at it that you got to make a ton of contact with a ton of really, really cool people. And I've got some stuff that, you know, I want you to take a look at as well. So, you
Wonderful.
know,
I was hoping you'd say that.
I wouldn't, you know, just say that you didn't walk away with anything. So
there's one final thing I want to add on Sunday that I did that I now in retrospect realize like might be a lot of fun for us to try, and maybe even have as a little like a fun little thing that you and Allie and Rachel and I all do together. There's this miniatures game from Steamforge Games called God Tier, which is a hex-based miniatures game, but it's got more of a strategy board game feel to it. And it is, I think, at its core, it's a one-on-one battler, but it's got a lot of, like, it's more objective-based than it is about just, like, beating the crap out of each other. The minis are beautiful. It's a lot of fun. It's got a lot of depth of strategy and replayability in that you can mix and match all the different characters in it. It's not faction-based or anything like that. And I managed to talk to Rachel about it as we were leaving, and we picked up 3 boxes because they had this just awesome deal on it. So I had her pick out the 3 boxes that she thought looked the coolest. And I thought it might be fun because I have a ton of them already, but to have you and Allie look at the minis I have and the minis that are available, and maybe we all work on painting them together and playing the game, I thought it might be a lot of fun.
yeah, that would be fun. I'd enjoy that.
Yeah.
Even though I suck at painting, I still have a good time when I do it. So,
Right, exactly.
and that way you can teach me a couple of things.
That's right. Free lessons.
Free lessons. That's free real estate right there.
That's free real estate.
You know, just to wrap up my Sunday, I walked around and said goodbye to a lot of people and tried not to tear up and cry, and still didn't manage to do that. Just so many amazing people at this convention. I mean, it really is the place that you go to, you know, network and meet people, because literally everybody is there at one place at one time. I didn't mention stopping by the booth where Lauren Yu was at and getting to meet her and talk to her a second time in person. She is wonderful. She's actually working on a Kickstarter right now called Drop Dice I backed. They're just these giant jumbo dice that have these little sensory dots that are on them. Actually can help with accessibility and people that have a issue picking things up. They're also extremely fun to just hold around in your hand and play with. They're a great fidget toy too. They're on Kickstarter right now, and I back that because I like dice and they had trans colors, and that's fun. But no, talking to her, talking to Mac, our good friend from Wormwood, who is just a sweetheart of a person. We absolutely love Mac. Always, takes the time to stop, say hi. Doesn't make you feel like you're, rushing him or inconveniencing him. He always takes the time to stop and talk to us, which is amazing. James Freeman from Team Doomlings drove down from Buffalo after his flight got canceled, and he just said, I'm not missing GenCon. We weren't able to hook up on Saturday, so we wound up, I walked over to the stadium on Sunday, which was such a cool experience. Being able to go and walk into the stadium and just seeing board game tables there, and it's so wild. Next year, I want Yum Yum Island in the stadium. I need that in my life.
I'm sad that I missed that. I really love Doomlings, and I would have loved to meet the origins of that.
Yeah, you're gonna get a chance. James really super sweet guy, lives in Buffalo. Like, it would have been closer for me to drive to Buffalo to see him than go to Indianapolis, but whatever. That's the way that we do things. We live like an hour away from each other, and that's when we get together as
I can
conventions
do you one
hours
better.
away.
I can do you one better. I was supposed to meet somebody in Indianapolis that lives in the same town as I do and have never met before, and we still didn't manage to do it.
It's the way that it always is.
It's the way it was.
But that's the wrap up. I mean, that's what we did, and I can't believe it's over. We said that before we even started recording. We just can't believe that it's over. It went by so fast. What were your thoughts on GenCon as a whole? Now knowing we just got the official press release a couple of hours ago. Now at this point. Over 50,000 attendees at this GenCon. I think for me, it felt it. People felt it. A lot of people that we were talking about from the publisher standpoint said that business was back. They felt good about the business that they did over the weekend. They felt good about attendance, which was kind of sketchy after Origins, which makes me worry maybe a little bit more about Origins than I did before. But maybe it was, I'm going to pick one that's going to be my comfort point of starting back and getting back into convention mode. And they picked GenCon instead of Origins. I don't know. What was your experience on GenCon as a whole?
I feel like I didn't experience Gen Con. I feel like I experienced people, and I love that. I feel like I would love Gen Con from a consumer standpoint, but as an industry person, honestly, if I had to nix one from our rotation, it would be Gen Con. Not because I didn't like it or I didn't think it was worth the time, but because everyone is so busy that it's difficult to actually do things together, because I think Gen Con's a big launch point for a lot of companies, and all the people that we need to interface with are going to be super busy handling those things. So while like if I do go back, it will probably be under the strict purpose of just going as a consumer and having extremely few meetings, or trying to focus, like I mentioned earlier, on demoing outside of the exhibitor hall and things like that, where it can be a little more relaxed, because I do feel like it was a very anxious and kind of hectic time. But I still need to kind of process everything that's happening, so I still need to think on that a little bit. I'd love to go back, but if I had to pick, I guess it would be the one that I would probably cut out, especially if I'm going to add Adepticon and the other con that we're going to in October to the rotation. It's a lot of traveling, a lot of money. That said, I really did love that we could drive there, so that's a factor in and of itself. Again, I don't speak to the quality of the con. It was wonderful. I thought they did a fantastic job with it, and I really did love it. I can't recommend it enough for anyone who wants to go. But for me personally, from a professional standpoint, it's to be determined. Probably need to go another time before I decide that for sure or not,
Yeah, I think for me, I feel that too. I feel the compulsion that I need to be there as a content creator, that this is a place that you need to be, because it's always been going to Origins. Okay, we've got this here that we're teasing, but we won't have anything concrete available to you until Gen Con. And being able to be there when that happens is a big deal for us. There's a lot of people that this is their show. This is the one that they go to. AEG is really careful about the shows that they go to, and Gen Con is one of the big ones that they are at. So it's tough, because I feel the same way in the fact that the people that we talk to, that we want to hang out with, that we want to do things with, are just so busy doing those things, doing those things that, they're launching product, they're going in and they're dealing with all these people. It's really it's a tough situation. Covering it as media was great. It was a dream come true. It was the big goal that I had from a mentorship perspective when I started mentoring with Aaron from Boards Alive in the tabletop mentorship program, and I did it. I got there. So it was what I had hoped for. It wasn't what I expected. And it was a great time. It was a great convention. I thought it was extremely well run. The communication was very good. From a media standpoint, I actually liked the media amenities a little bit better at Origins because we had the rooms to deal with. We had that little mixer and mingle, which we kind of got anyways with Charity Gamers event. So, but it's tough to kind of determine, path forward with this one. I would probably, if I were to be chosen as media again, I would probably go, but it's a tough one to kind of determine. All that I know is that I'm glad that I'm going to DragonCon, as more of a attendee and less of media, so I can get games played, and that way I can actually have content to deliver to you as listeners, that I'm able to talk about games. I can get that bank built up, that we can talk about these things. So it's tough. Great time, just different than I thought it was going to be. A couple other games I did want to note. Fit to Print that Charlotte was demoing. Point City, both from Flat Out. Looking forward to those games. We didn't get a huge amount of information on them, but just looking at both of them, I'm a huge Point Salad fan. Point City looks amazing, and Fit to Print just looks adorable. And Charlotte did such a great job demoing it. Just the hype on that is real.
Rachel was looking at Fit to Print and then got drawn in by Calico, and I believe the other one was Verdant.
Yes, which I had already kickstarted.
So hooked on the idea of those games. So I want to just throw a little kudos to Flat Out for making such awesome games.
I haven't met a Flat Out game yet that I haven't enjoyed highly. So... Phantom Inc. was another one that really impressed me. A little party game, maybe a little bit high in the price point from what I'm used to for a party game. It was around the $30 marks. What's that?
A little trivia about Phantom Inc.
Yeah.
Ray actually worked on that one when she was at Resonim.
Really?
Yeah, we've talked about it offline a little bit. She's like, we got to get you to play that. It's very fun. She speaks very highly of it. So
it looks amazing. I'm just a little bit... I don't know if the $30 price point is worth it on it. I need to see the components first before I make a determination on that.
For sure. Maybe I can make something happen. We'll see.
There might be some things in the works, too. And then Cat in the Box is another one that I could not get my hands on at Origins that I finally got my hands on at GenCon. And reading through the rules, I'm so excited about this game as well. So those are kind of the games. That's our experience. That's our rundown. You have plenty of content now. This is like a double episode for us. So, you're welcome. Or sorry, depending on how you're looking at it. Any last thoughts? Anything, we should have done differently? Any things that we're going to do again? Just general thoughts from you on Gen Con as we wrap up.
Last thoughts, and I want to stress directly to you that this is not a condemnation of a choice that you made, but due to the lottery aspect of the room selection that we had. I did not realize until living through it how absolutely it affects the con experience to not have a hotel within walking distance of the con. That
Yep.
blows my mind because we weren't that far even. We were less than 10 minutes. But just the aspect of having to get there, find parking, get into the con, it turns a 10-minute drive into a half-hour setup. And, again, that we had no choice in the matter. But the fact is, I just want to stress to anyone, I would not put a price on how much more I would pay to have that
Yeah.
convenience, because it just blew my mind how much of a difference it makes.
Well, and we're looking, next year potentially at Airbnbs, possibly trying to book out a hotel just straight out without getting into the lottery and maybe paying a little bit more. But you're exactly right. A lot of our talk on the way home was focused around we need to be on site for this convention because, not being within walking distance is such a hassle. To find parking, to make sure the parking is there, to go up the parking ramp, to make sure, once you're parked in the right place. And to be honest, it was a good, probably, depending on the day, 25 to $50 that we spent on parking every day too. So that's all money that could go into a hotel. So just food for thought. That's a very good point.
Definitely.
So is that it?
That's all I got.
Okay.
That's all. That's all. Two and a half hours.
2.5 hours of talking. That's all that we had on this. So, all right. Well, I think that is going to do it for us today. Again, thank you to Jamie for sitting here and chatting with me, and the 2 hours of just banter back and forth about our experience. I think we kind of needed it to decompress a little bit. If you want more information, please go to cardboardtime.com. My Instagram and Twitter is @cardboard_time. Our Board Game Geek podcast page is up, and we have our Board Game Arena group. All you have to do is search for Cardboard Time, just start up a game and chat with us. I'm on there all the time anyways. And any questions, suggestions, or ideas for discussion topics, please email cardboardtime@gmail.com. Jamie, what are your socials?
Everywhere. I am known as @JamieDaggers. I can't think of the word now. It's escaping me. The empire that keeps growing.
Yes. As you expand into all sorts of different arenas.
That's right.
And I think what was your Twitter? The Empress of Yum Yum Island or something. Scourge of Yum Yum
Currently
Island.
it's the Scourge of Yum Yum Island. And on Twitter, I'm sure if you search Jamie Daggers, it'll show up. But it's Jamie_Daggers there. I still can't get the guy who took the Jamie Daggers name like 5 years ago and never tweeted again off squatting on that name.
That's awful. At some point, you're going to be big enough that you'll just get that check mark and be like, oh yeah, by the way, could you take care of this problem for me?
That's the goal.
Yeah, exactly.
I jokingly said on Twitter last night that I live my life in such a way so as in the inevitable event of my untimely demise, they make a painting anime about it, and at least a limited manga run. That's just the most.
Perfect. I love it. That should be the goal. That should be the goal for all of us. Well, again, thank you for listening. If you made it through the past 2.25 hours or so, we really appreciate it. We really appreciate, you listening. And this is why we go to these things, other than to see the people and talk with our friends and hang out. You're part of those people. I got to meet a lot of people through this podcast, and you are part of them. So, if we're ever at a convention, don't be afraid to come up to us and say hi and be like, you need to sit down and play a board game, because sometimes I need that reminder too. So that is it for us. As always, thanks again for listening. And we'll see you in 2 weeks for another episode of Cardboard Time. Happy gaming.